So let's hear it for Michael Feldman. Yay. Soren Kierkegaard said, "There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true." So this is a line that we walk as humans, that we are constantly being faced to believe what isn't true and to refuse to believe what is true. It's called denial. As we continue to study impermanence, we need to explore the idea of, and the challenge, if you will, of this ability that we have as humans to not see what is right in front of us, right? We put on rose-colored glasses and we tend to see what we want to see. So many times we can end up living a life of illusion, and as spiritual beings, our task is to see beyond a life of illusion, to pierce that veil, if you will, and to see what lies behind, which is the spirit, the soul of God, of eternity, of immortality that exists beyond this dimension. And again, we are kind of masters sometimes at living in denial, are we not? How many times have you heard stories, or maybe perhaps it's yourself, where you notice maybe something not right with your body, and you go, it's fine, I don't have to deal with it, it'll be fine, and then only it comes up to be something big later. Or maybe you've decided not to notice something maybe that your partner is doing, and later to find out, well, maybe something was going on, or finances, or whatever it may be. There are many times in our lives where the handwriting is on the wall and we don't see it. So when we look at the story of the handwriting on the wall, it actually comes from the Old Testament. It actually comes from the book of Daniel. And so I want to share with you a little bit of that story. So King Belshazzar, he was kind of not a great king, let's put it that way. And he was having this great feast with thousands of people there. And of course, you know, they're drinking and eating. And one of the things he did is he took the sacred temple vessels and had people drink wine out of them. So, yeah, it's kind of a sacrilege. You don't take stuff out of a temple or a church and then, you know, do some debauchery with it, you know, which is kind of what he was up to. And so while this party is happening, while all this stuff is happening, all of a sudden a hand appeared out of nowhere and started to write on the wall. And when Belshazzar saw it, he freaked out. I mean, he practically collapsed. He was like terrified of this. But he didn't know what it meant. He didn't know what it said. So he calls in all of his counselors and all of his wise people in the kingdom, and they're looking at it. Nobody can interpret it. And then his wife says, you know, Daniel is a prophet. He's very wise. You should call him in. I bet he can figure out what it says. So Daniel comes in, and we read in the book of Daniel, and this is the writing that was inscribed. Mene, Mene, Tekel, and Parsin. This is the interpretation of the matter, says Daniel. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Oops, not good news. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Oops. Perez, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Well, big shocker, the next day, the king was killed. So, you know, again, the handwriting was on the wall. He had to have seen this coming, and yet he really didn't. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise. And how many times in your life has the handwriting been on the wall and you chose to ignore it? Anybody? And I think we do this because to face reality sometimes gets us in touch with the groundlessness and impermanence of our existence. Now, the truth is, again, that when we see beyond this veil of illusion, we see that really we are spirit, we are soul. This is the truth of our existence. And I want to kind of share with you and touch on that, because as we go through the impermanence, it's always important to go back to, but what is the truth, right? What is behind it? What is the truth? And I think Wordsworth said it perfectly. He said, our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come. So you get this idea of we're being born, and this is like this amazing thing from God, who is our home. Heaven lies about us in our infancy, shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy and girl. But he beholds the light and whence it flows, and she sees in it her joy. So the idea being that we come from this incredible place as infants. We're not born a blank slate, but as we grow, this prison kind of closes around us, and we forget who we are. We forget what our true identity is, and we forget that, you know what, impermanence is part of the deal, because it's what we signed up for when we came into these bodies. So when we confront that which we would rather not, means that we might have to change ourselves and or face change, which is uncomfortable. So how many of you were not here last week? Great, okay. Because I have some news for you that I shared last week. And for those of you who are new, and this is your first Sunday, we have been in the process of a building project for the last 4 or 5 years, it seems, and we're going to rebuild this whole building, sell off part of it, rebuild it in the front. And, we've gotten extensions, and, we were supposed to move out last year, then we're going to move out in December, then we're going to move out in October, and it keeps changing. And the truth is, it's kind of felt like a theory, like, yeah, that's something that's going to happen, but not really. Well, we've got a final date on our move-out date, and our last Sunday here is May 26th. So if this is the first time you've heard it, gasp, if you like. We're having a big celebration this Saturday before that we would like you to join us for. So what has seemed like something that's been a theory all of a sudden has become real. And the truth is, if this doesn't get you in touch with impermanence, then I don't know what will. And this has stirred up so many mixed emotions. I have experienced myself and have heard sadness and anger and fear and hope and excitement all rolled into one. I have had people come from all places and tell me, my baby was christened in that chapel and all of the things, and it's like, yes, I know. And so I guess my call to each other in this is to be present and to listen and to hold these very real, strong feelings that are emerging because the move is now real. And the truth is, we can live in denial about the upcoming changes, or we can face it head on, which includes the feelings of groundlessness, the feelings of losing the past that this conjures up. So, Pema Chodron, who is the book that we are leaning on greatly this year, she says, "What a predicament. We seem doomed to suffer simply because we have a deep-seated fear of how things really are. Our tendency is to find lasting pleasure, lasting security, but we are a part of a dynamic system in which everything and everyone is in process." That includes you. That includes me. How can we live wholeheartedly in the face of impermanence, knowing that one day we're going to die? And really, isn't that what it's all about behind everything? All the insecurity, it's like, yeah, one day, maybe now it's giving up the building, but someday we're going to have to give up these bodies. We're going to have to give up this identity. We're going to have to give up everything and everyone that we know to go to that great unknown. She says, what is it like to realize that we can never completely and finally get it all together? Right? If only you had the right money, or you the right weight, or the right house, or whatever, then finally you'd get it all together. The truth is, we are a work in progress, and we'll never get it all together. She says, is it possible to increase our tolerance of instability and change? And how can we make friends with unpredictability and uncertainty, and to embrace them as if they are vehicles to transform our lives? So how would you like to make friends with unpredictability and uncertainty? How can we make friends with the change that is happening with our beloved building? How do we make friends with that? And I think part of it is just being real with what is, at the same time looking at what is next. And even if this is your first Sunday and you're like, yeah, I don't have any attachment to this building, what is a change that is in front of you right now? And how can you make friends with the change that is in front of you right now? What do you need to do to make friends with that? How can you meet it and use it so it can transform your life? This is a whole spiritual process. So denying reality can only lead to a life of illusion where we fool ourselves into believing that something is not happening. Oh, we're not going to move. You know, the date's going to keep getting moved out and moved out and moved out, and that'll be 5 or 10 years from now. Guess what? It's May 26th that we're moving. But don't we have the same kind of issue going on with climate change right now, right? It's like this reality keeps hitting us in the face, and we keep denying that reality, that it's kind of a theory, that it's something that's kind of out there that isn't really going to affect us. Like the building move, again, it seems like it's a theory, yet the handwriting is on the wall in so many ways. Yeah, floods in Nebraska, cyclones in Mozambique, fires in California and Australia. It goes on, the list goes on. And it's easier to just go, yeah, no, it's fine. So we can choose to see what is right in front of us, or we can choose to live in denial. So, what would it be like to live a life beyond illusion? How would your life be different if you lived a life beyond illusion? Byron Katie said it this way: I am a lover of what is, because I'm a spiritual person, not because I'm a spiritual person, but because it hurts when I argue with reality. You ever argued with reality? When we stop opposing reality, action becomes a simple, fluid, kind, and fearless. Action becomes simple, fluid, kind, and fearless. So we have an opportunity to practice this together as a community through our building project. Let's meet this change with action that is simple, fluid, kind, and fearless. Can you do that? We're going to need your help in June as we start moving things out. And if we all joined up in that way of kindness and fluidity and that clear action of facing what is. So I'd like you to think about a change that you had to make in your past, and you met it with that kind of action. Think about that for a moment. What was an action? What was a change that you had to make in your life, and rather than denying it or pretending that it wasn't there, you met it head on. You met it with clear sight, with kindness, with fluidity, with clear action. Just hold that for a minute. What was that? How did that come out for you? And on the other side of that, think about a time when you resisted change and you denied the handwriting on the wall. And how did that come out for you? Because we've all done both, right? We've all done both of these things. So I've kind of started you in the process of going within, but I invite you to kind of stay there or go there more deeply. And touching in again, thinking about a change that you had to make in the past, that you met with action that was simple, fluid, kind, and fearless. So what change is in front of you right now, if any? We all have some kind of big or small change that we are looking at in our lives. And is there something that you have been refusing to see? Is it around your health, your finances, your relationship? Imagine that you are facing it with action that is simple, kind, and fearless. And see yourself on the other side of this change. Taking a deep breath as you call this in. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting and comes from afar. In truth, we are spiritual beings, and that divine presence that's within us will carry us through any challenge that is in front of us. For you have been endowed with divine gifts, with the power of life and wisdom and imagination. For you are made in the image and likeness of God, and as such, a co-creator. And so as we come back to this time and this place, and we wonder, what would it be like when we all work together? Amen. And just one last piece. There's a documentary out called Apollo 11, and it has footage of the moon landing. And what this story of going to the moon tells us is what we can do when we come together with kindness and fluidity and intelligence. There's nothing that we can't do and or achieve and or face together. And that is an inspiration that we take as we move into this experience. Amen.